Good morning and welcome to the joint meeting between the Michigan Aeronautics Commission and the Michigan State Transportation Commission. My name is Todd Wyett and I am currently sitting in Charlevoix, Michigan. If one by one and in no particular order until we're finished, if everyone can announce themselves and where they're physically located at this time.
I'm Mike Hayes and I am in Midland, Michigan.
I am Helen Zirup and I am in Holland, Michigan.
I'm Greg Johnson and I'm in Wixom, Michigan.
And I'm Stephen Adamini and I'm in Marquette, Michigan.
I'm Rick Fiddler. I'm in Ada, Michigan, and the current chairperson of the Michigan Aeronautics Commission.
Good morning, everyone. This is Kelly Burris. I'm not out on my wing at Sleeping Bear Dunes. I am sitting in Pleasant Ridge, Michigan this morning.
Good morning, Russ Cavaluna checking in from Dearborn, Michigan.
Roger Salo in Plymouth, Michigan.
Kevin Jacobs, Roscommon, Michigan.
Brian Tuft from Lansing, Michigan.
Lauren Mess from Clinton County.
Denise Johnson, Livonia, Michigan.
For the Michigan Aeronautics Commission, do we have Brian Balo on the line? And for the Michigan Aeronautics Commission, do we have Dr. Brian Smith on the line?
And for the State Transportation Commission, do we have Commissioner Utuma on the line?
Yes, I'm here, Bloomfield, Michigan. Sorry, I had some technical difficulty dialing in.
Anybody else who needs to declare where they are and that they're on the line? Well, with that, we will continue with the meeting. Welcome. I have no prepared remarks other than to say that Aeronautics Commission has 2 people with ties, wearing ties right now, and the State Transportation Commission has 1 person wearing a tie. So Rick, it's up to it's your meeting.
Actually, we have nothing prepared either, other than that I believe it was the Transportation Department's turn to host the meeting.
Yeah, I meant your comments. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, I know my comments. No, I'm just glad that everybody could call in. I wish we could do it in person.
All right. First,
everybody on behalf of Michigan Aeronautics Commission, Department of Transportation. That's it.
Let's review and approve the minutes of January 2020, our joint meeting. Anybody have any comments or changes?
I would move approval, Mr. Chairman. This is Mike Hayes.
And do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Who was that?
Roger Salo.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining? Motion carries. All right, Director Ajegba, it's always good to see you. We have your director's report.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Good to see everybody. Hope everybody had a good holiday break. My report today is going to be a short presentation about several topics of, thank you, Shekina. So I'm going to go to the next slide, please. Just talk a little bit about what a historic year we had last year. And the next topic is going to be about some of our project lettings and the Rebuilding Michigan program. Just kind of give you an update on how we are spending that $3.5 billion bonding money. And then the last piece of my presentation is going to be on the flooding and Midland flooding, how MDOT was able to respond to the needs of the community, and the governor's charge that we do all we can to connect the communities back together as quickly as possible. Next slide, please. So as everybody know, well, we had a very historic year last year. COVID happened, and the governor issued a stay-home order around March of last year. And when the governor ordered the stay-home order, we saw a drastic drop. Next slide, please. In the traffic volume, 60% drop. And as you can see, it started going back up around April, May, but by the time we got to like July the 4th holiday weekend, things were beginning to kind of normalize that, but we never got back to the original level. Obviously, with this is less revenue because people were not driving. So as we were figuring out, okay, what does this pandemic means? How do we still try to carry on our lives around that time? And I think that's when people started getting a little more comfortable and getting back out around April, May, June, July timeframe. And as I mentioned, it leveled off. As part of this, what we noticed is that, next slide, please. Even though the traffic volume was down, but the speed in our freeways was very high. A guy was clocked driving 180 miles an hour on I-75 in Monroe in a Buick. I mean, that's just unheard of. And what we also found out is that in 2020, we had about 1,032 fatal crashes on our freeway, even though the traffic was down compared to 2019, about 985 fatal crashes. So volume of traffic was down, but fatal crashes was high, and we believe it's a result of the higher speed on our freeways. But we did take advantage of that low traffic volume throughout the year by getting a lot of construction work done. Next slide, please. But before I get into some of the advantages of traffic volume being down, we did, as I mentioned, about fatal crashes being up. We had 5 very bad fatal crashes on our work zone last year, and these are highlighted in this slide here and the locations. You can click on it. Okay. Keep clicking. They won't go back. The one I really want to highlight is the last one on the bottom, where two City Hughes workers got killed on I-94 on a night walk doing concrete patches out there. And I think we did pay them respect last meeting by observing a moment of silence for them. As you can see, look at the ages of these young men, 23 years old. These are the kind of the new generation we're trying to attract into our business, because again, we're trying to, a message out there is that college is not for everybody. If you don't want to go to college, there's other trades you can and we're competing with other trades. So to have these 2 young men killed on a construction project like that, I think really sets us back. But again, this was a very tragic incident, and we, based on that, we're working with the industry right now to take a look at our mobility policy. Is this still the right policy? That policy was put in place 15 years ago. Part of when that policy was put in place was to balance public mobility and also being able to get a lot of work done within a very short period of time, because we don't have much time in the summertime, right? So we try to encourage contractors to work at nights and weekends so that we don't have congestion all over our freeways. With this kind of incidents happening on our freeways, we had to maybe take a step back and rethink it. Uh, Again, without divulging a lot of the things that we are working with them on, and because we don't have an agreement yet on what the final mobility document is going to look like. But we're working with them to try and tweak it a little bit to address some of the issues that was brought to us. One of them, Cindy Hughes, was very concerned that this is happening a lot. I think they also had another fatality on one of their projects last year, that perhaps doing concrete patching at night is not a good thing because they're so close to that edge line and center line that moving traffic over may not be that safe or doing it at night. So and what's so unfortunate about this one was also that the incident it was preventable. This was a drunk driver that got on a closed lane and killed the two walkers. So let's move on to the next slide. This slide is just to show you what our lettings have been. As you know, we try to let 90% of our projects within the first 2 quarters of the year, so that way contractors can order their materials and get all their equipment and everything all set up so that by the time the weather breaks, they're ready to get out there and start working. So what you see here is showing you what our letting is looking at, and it's consistent with what we've been doing for the last maybe 8 to 10 years now. Next slide, please. So as you can see, if you look at 2021, once you get to March 2021, we're going to be letting about 53 projects for over $200 million. After that, in April, it just drops. And then by the time you get to June, we only have 5 projects that we're going to be letting. Again, this is all part of the strategy to let 90% of our projects within the first 2 quarters of the fiscal year. Next slide, please. This is just,
Please mute
this slide is just,
if you're not talking, please mute yourself so that we don't get people over talking the director.
this slide is just to show just more of a cross section of how our program is distributed across the state. As you can see, for 2021, and if even beyond that, University Region and Metro carries the bulk of the projects in the state. But again, this is more of just kind of showing you where all the work are concentrated. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, even with COVID, we were able to take advantage of the low traffic volume to get a lot of work done. So kind of want to share with you some of the success stories. These are projects that perhaps, without that low volume of traffic and being able to close the lane for a longer period of time, we may not have been able to get done on time. I-75 and State Line in Monroe County is a $115 million project. And it started in 2019 and we were able to finish it last year on time. Next slide. I-75 segment 2 in Oakland County, 8.6 miles of reconstruction and adding an additional lane. It's about a $235 million project. That project started in 19. The majority of it is completed in 2020, but there's still some punch list items and a few cleanup work to get done in 2021. So I would imagine by April, May of this year, that project will wrap up. Next slide, please. This is I-196 in Grand Rapids. If you've ever been to Grand Rapids on AM or PM peak hour, you know that this is a very badly needed project. I mean, there's always a backup out there. So first I want to thank the Grand Rapids team for coming up with this concept. This is going to be make a difference in how people's commute time in that region. It's a $44 million project that was finished last year. I think it was done around November. The governor was even out there doing the ribbon cutting. So we're very excited about this project. I've not been back out there since it's open, but I would imagine the traffic pattern is completely changed by now. Next slide. This is Second Avenue bridge over I-94 in Detroit. It's a $25 million project. You're going to see on the next slide more like of a gateway treatment. This project is going to be completed this fall. Next slide, please. It's been built in a parking lot right next to the location, and then they're just going to slide it in when it's done. As you can see, again, it's an arch bridge. We are looking forward to the completion of it. A lot of the work is gotten done already, and I think by this fall we should be opening up the bridge. Next slide. East Grand Boulevard over I-94 bridge, same thing. It's $18 million project. The reason I'm showing you all this project is that even with what was going on with COVID, we still had a lot. We still got a lot done. Initially, as you all know, we had a slight slowdown because everybody was trying to figure out, okay, what does this really mean? And I think the industry and MDOT working together, we responded very well. We figured out how to still get our work done and still staying safe out there. Next slide, please. Kind of want to share with you some success stories that doesn't get out in the press much, and it's because when we go to the legislatures to say we need more money for our infrastructure, the first thing is we want to see efficiency. We want to make sure you're not wasting money. There's a project on I-69. It's a 11 miles concrete pavement repair. The original contract value was $45.3 million. And that final contract value was $45.5 million, a savings of 3.74%. To me, I mean, $45 million out of you can't get that much precise. And that starts with first scoping the project very well, planning, designing what you really want out there, and then letting the project to the contractor. The contractor knows what they are bidding on and what is expected. Because if you don't prepare a good plan, then your price is going to be off. The next project is I-75 Design Build Project, 6.81 miles of pavement repair in Ajegba County. It's a $21.8 million project. That project was completed with $21.4 million, 1.71% difference in price. I mean, that, again, I don't know how much I can say this. You can't get that much precise than that. Next slide, please. And then again, several examples of this. I-75, it's a $90 million project in Oakland County. That's the segment 1 project. $90.8 million was our original contract price, and the contractor finished the project at $88.7 million, 2.34% difference. The other one, 3.64 miles of HMA reconstruction and bridge in Kent County in Grand Rapids area. $21.7 million original contract price, final contract value was $21.3 million, 1.68% difference. So I share this to show that we are doing everything we can with the industry to be efficient with taxpayers' money. We really believe that at the end of all this $3.5 billion bonding money, that will be able to demonstrate to the legislatures and to the public the need to increase funding for our infrastructure. Next slide, please. Another example, but I'm gonna skip that first one. Talk about that second one. I-75, 3.75 miles of concrete pavement repair. I mean, look how close that is. $45.9 million original contract price, and the final contract value was $45.5 million, a difference of 0.86%. So there is no cost overrun, inflation, and all the other stuff that you hear out there anytime we go out to ask our legislators that there's a need to increase funding. Next slide, please. Next slide. This is just to kind of show you where we are with our rebuilding Michigan bond financing. I think in January of last year, Laura Mester did a presentation that showed you the bulk of the bonding money is going to be spent in this year, 2021, 2022, and 2023. And as you can see, by the time you get to 2024, there's a huge drop-off. Again, my hope is that by the time we get to that point, the public and the legislatures will start beginning to see the difference in what this money is made in our infrastructure, and the discussion and the need to come up with a long-lasting funding mechanism for our infrastructure. That conversation will start, because this is just a holdover, really. It's a financing mechanism. It's not a funding mechanism. And my hope is that we can start having that conversation before we get to 2024. Next slide, please. This is, again, this slide is just to show the combination of all our program, including the bonding money, all inclusive. Again, as you can see, 2021, 2022, 2023 is going to be when we spend the bulk of the money, and after that, that's a major drop-off. Next slide. This pie chart just showing the distribution. As you can see, Metro gets the bulk of the money, $2.8 billion, and University Region gets $1.5 billion, Bay Region 1.3. So that's how the money is going to be distributed in the next 5 years, between 2021 and 2025. Next slide, please. So we've led about 4 rebuilding Michigan projects so far. The first one is I-496. This project is actually completed. The trend we're seeing is that we're getting good prices from the contractor. Part of when I went in front of the legislature, I think it was the Senate that was testifying, and I kept getting beat over there. Well, you put all this work out there so quickly, the contractor's going to jack up their prices. You're going to have inflation. You're going to have all this stuff going on. But the numbers are not really bearing it out. As you can see, the engineer's estimate on that first one is $52 million, and the low bid was $47 million, a savings of $4.4 million. The next one is I-69. It's a design build job. The engineer's estimate is $214 million. The low bid was $210 million. The next project is I-94 US 31 in Southwest Region. The engineer's estimate is $133 million, and the low bid was $121 million. That's a savings of $11 million. The only anomaly we've seen so far is the last one, the I-94 project in Jackson. The engineer's estimate was $97 million, but the low bid was $117 million. But what we found out is that the next lowest bidder was close, which means the contractor's numbers were closer than our numbers. So the difference is 19 million. All totaled, we're still about $223,000 ahead. So I wanted to keep putting this message out there as we go, and I will keep updating you every meeting as much as possible as the numbers come in. Because this is the story I believe we need to tell the public and the legislature, that putting more money into infrastructure, if it's done right, it's not always going to end up being there's inflation or price gouging and all that going on. We have experience in doing this. As you remember, in 2008, when President Obama came in, there was an infusion of about $1 billion into the state, and we were able to manage that money well. Well, we didn't see a price gouging or inflation at all. So I hope, as I said, as we move forward, I will keep updating the commission on how well we're doing with pricing and how the progress of our projects. Next slide, please. The 496 project I mentioned was the first bonding project. This was a project, the contractor took advantage of the low traffic volume to get all this work done in 1 year. The governor was out there doing the ribbon cutting for it. So we hope to be doing a whole lot more of this as they complete the projects. Next slide. So with all of that going on, then midnight happened. We had a historical 500-year flood happen in 3 days, May 17 to May 19, about 9 inches of rain. And I always tell people, pictures doesn't do it justice. You had to have been out there to really see how bad it was. The picture on the right of the slide is the governor visiting the site and declared a state of emergency right after she visited it. And MDOT, we've, over the years, perfected the act of how we respond to emergency. We have an emergency protocol handbook that every region knows what to do when there's an emergency. You call 3 to 5 contractors, you bring them out there, they take a look at what needs to be done, you give them a time frame to submit their bids, you pick the low bidder, off to work they go. Next slide, please. So what we did, the first thing we did was to hire, the first contract was, debris were all over the place. Houses, boats, trailer homes were all washed away. So we hired a contractor to get out there and first clear all that. This is another slide, M30 at Edenville. As you can see, the bridge is no longer there. Next slide, please. So within a short period of time, US 10 was restored back to its normal, since it was opened before the July 4th holiday. This was our very first route that we got done. And as you can see, I believe, yes, we did open this right before July the 4th holiday weekend. Next slide, please. The contractor was Fisher Contracting. The cost of clearing the debris was about $1.4 million. Then after that, they came in and did US 10 at Stanford Lake for $2.18 million. And then the M30 at Tiatabawasi River, that was a $1.1 million project. So being able to have an emergency response protocol, getting contractor out there to get started on time, to get all this work done within this short period of time. All this work was done before the end of the year. And the last piece of this work is getting done now. We should be opening that up by the end of February or March. So we responded to the governor's charge of getting the mobility back to the community within a short period of time. And I cannot thank our team and Bob Rank and his team in Bay Region for all the hard work they put into this. This is it was a collective effort. Lansing, matching out and the bridge folks and region working together to make this happen. They really made that look good, and I'm really proud of them. Next slide, please. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll open up for any questions. But again, thank you for giving me the time to share our update with you.
Thank you, Director. I'm going to hold the questions until the commissioner comments section only because I asked Troy Hagan to go into the Teams meeting and open it up for the 9:30 State Transportation Commission so that any members of the public don't think that they're going to a meeting that didn't happen. So I'm going to have you go right to Mike Trout's report.
Thank you, Chairman Wyett, and thank you, Director, and welcome to all the commissioners. And I will take control here. I just want to go through a few slides here and update you on a few things that's happening in aeronautics. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
These are the topics I'm going to cover today. I'm going to talk a little bit about CARES, the aviation fuel revenue, some COVID impacts, and some stats that we have. This won't take very long, but I do want to also mention a couple of issues that we're dealing with that I think are of interest to all of us. First of all, just wanted to let you know that our staff and working with the FAA received almost $257 million in additional funding this year through the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security CARES Act. As you can see, the breakdown to that, majority of that, I think about over 140 million went to Metro Airport, but these were grants for assistance directly to airports to offset losses related to COVID. And there is a second relief package coming called the Airport Coronavirus Response Grant Program, acronyms always in transportation. This $2 billion will be made available, and the details aren't out yet, but will be made available to airports to offset the costs related to some of their concessions. So we're looking forward to that. Of course, this did put a significant amount of work on our staff, but they were able to complete this in addition to our regular program. Of course, one of the things that we track is aviation fuel. And as you can see here, the red line is 19, the blue line is 20, and the green line here is 21. As you can see, beginning of last year, we were really doing well, pretty steady and growing. And then, of course, the pandemic hit and things have dropped off. There have been some spikes, but it's reporting more than it is activity. But we are encouraged by increased activity and travel that we're trends that we're starting to see. As you can tell, it's going to impact our revenue. It did last year. It did this year. Almost a 28% decrease in fuel tax revenue, and that impacts us. So our revenue from all our sources declined a couple $million, and as you can see at Metro, it was quite significant. But the effect of our airport improvement program actually grew a little bit in 21. You can see down there towards the middle of the screen, the federal program was quite robust, as well as the local contribution. And that's the whole point of this program, is to incentivize local investments as well. Use state money and leverage what we can out of the locals with the federals as well. Our air service program was reduced significantly, just had to make that choice based on revenues. And one of the impacts is our match. As you saw on that one slide, we tend to match state grant, federal grants as well. Our ability to match that may be impacted by our reduced revenues, but we're tracking it very closely. Just some notable things, you'll see that we were still very active in our aircraft registrations and dealer licenses and tall structure permitting, which is always a very robust program for us. One of the things that we've been dealing with, and most of you probably now are aware of PFAS, and I won't try and tell you what that acronym stands for, but last couple of years, Michigan has been very proactive in its addressing PFAS issues at airports. And one of the things that we did was we implemented a program with the legislature's help to put testing equipment at airports where they wouldn't have to shoot the ARF or the firefighting foam onto the ground. We were recognized by NASAO, which is the National Association of State Aviation Officials, for that effort, and we were very proud of that. We still believe that there's a lot of work to do, and the awareness is really lacking in many states. Of course, Michigan is at the very top when it comes to environmental issues, especially things that affect water. So our PFAS efforts are going to continue to create an awareness and then hopefully some action to address the issue. The last thing I wanted to mention was just some of the activities that we're having with our UAS program, which is clearly ramping up. UAS are becoming more prevalent in our daily lives. They're going to become more prevalent in our work. And you can see some of the things that we're currently doing with them, including inspecting various infrastructure that MDOT has. We're supporting the UAS task force. And we now have a partnership started with the Office of Future Mobility and Electrification in MEDC, where we are looking at, of course, this is the vehicle corridor, this graphic that you see. You're probably familiar with that, that mobility corridor that's been created. And we're now looking at an RFP that will basically overlay an air mobility corridor as well and look at the effects of the two together, the impacts on the ground infrastructure and different types of activities like that. So this is a very important step for us in our work towards a fully functioning UAS program in Michigan. And that was it. Mr. Chair, I think you're on mute, sir.
Thank you. Somehow I went to mute without. I'm now going to open it up to Commissioner comments. I'm going to ask you to be brief because we are running over and we have each commission has scheduled meetings right after. So any comments or questions from commissioners?
I have a question. This is Roger Salo speaking to Mr. Ajegba. In the TF2 Transportation Task Force, we were discussing the antiquated I-94 corridor in Detroit, and I noticed there's some bridge projects that were done. Is that in anticipation of improving that that corridor down there?
That's correct. So the strategy is for us to tackle all the bridges in that corridor. We're lengthening them and bringing them up to the new federal standard by raising the underclearance. And then once we're done with that, then we'll come in and do the freeway. Obviously, funding is a big part of it as well, but the planning and all the design stuff is going on behind the scenes.
Good news. Good news. Thank you.
Roger, that was one of the major uses of the bonds that we issued last year that was so controversial.
Okay. Yeah, it's an antiquated corridor, obviously, and needs to be redone. So,
any other comments, questions? All right, hearing none. Any from the public? All right, hearing none, I will declare this morning meeting adjourned and ask the members of the State Transportation Commission to immediately click into their next Teams meeting. Thank you.
Thank you all.
morning and welcome to the January 21st meeting of the State Transportation Commission. My name is Todd Wyett, and right now I am in Charlevoix, Michigan. I will ask each commissioner to identify where they are.
This is Mike Hayes, and I am sitting in Midland, Michigan.
This is Greg Johnson. I'm in Wixom, Michigan.
Chris, you're on mute.
Yeah, thank you, Todd. Good morning. This is Chris Utuma. I'm in Bloomfield, Michigan.
This is Helen Zirup. I'm in Holland, Michigan.
And I know Troy's there. I think Jack is there. We'll give Commissioner Adamini a minute. I want to make sure he's in there. Steve, are you in yet?
I've not seen him join yet, Mr. Chairman.
Do you want to give him a jingle and see if he's having some technical difficulties?
Yes, certainly.
We'll give him one more minute and then we will commence.
That's the kind of reason how technology works, because I'm used to using Zoom, but this has worked pretty well this morning.
Commissioner Adamini's transferring over right now.
Terrific. I like Zoom better as well, although for sharing presentations, people tell me that Teams is better.
Yeah, I don't see any trouble with Zoom sharing, but
I see Joanna saying the Zoom is better. I would think that more public would be able to come in if they wanted to come in through Zoom, that Teams is much more of a concept for businesses and governments. Still going to hold for Commissioner Adamini because I want him to be able to announce where he is. All right, I'm going to start, and when I see him pop in, I'll ask him to announce where he is. I'm going to skip any welcome other than what we already had and go right to anybody's comments or questions on the minutes before we take a motion. Anybody have any changes, comments, questions? I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to approve. This is Helen.
This is Mike Hayes. I'll support.
Thank you, Mike. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining? All right. Next, Troy, we have the TAM appointments.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. This morning, the Michigan Transportation Planning Association would like to appoint Mr. Ryan Buck, Director of Washtenaw Area Transportation Study, to replace Mr. Jonathan Start as the Michigan Transportation Planning Association representative on the Transportation Asset Management Council. And I do need a motion to approve Mr. Buck's appointment to the TAMC.
Hereby motioned.
Support.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining? Motion passes. Jack, you're up.
Good morning, Commissioners. As 2021 starts, OCA is optimistic about its efforts to assist MDOT this year. One of the items that can be presented to you at meetings or in waivers is called Exhibit B. I'm going to briefly describe how MDOT and the Commission several years ago changed the Exhibit B process and helped increase MDOT's operational efficiencies. As you might recollect, the Exhibit B shows all projects having final contract amounts that exceeded original contract amounts by more than 10%. It currently answers the questions, what projects have gone significantly over their initial budget? And beginning 9 years ago, the Exhibit B shows technical attributes such as project number and the original contract amount and the final contract amount, and it informs the reader why the project costs increased. It provides the primary reasons that MDOT or a local agency exceeded the original contract amount. It didn't used to be that way. Several years ago, using the Exhibit B of the time, the Commission required MDOT to seek and obtain Commission approval to pay the contractor when total costs to date had exceeded 10% of the original contract. To be clear, MDOT wasn't seeking approval for the contractor to perform the underlying unexpected work. To keep the projects moving, MDOT had already assessed the situation and agreed with the contractor that the additional work was necessary. Instead, the Commission required the department to obtain approval to pay the contractor for the work they had already performed. The process compelled contractors to wait for payment for several weeks after they performed the work that that was agreed to and approved by MDOT. So without going into detailed examples, the old Exhibit B process was significantly inefficient. It did not provide useful information to the Commission. There had to be a better way to speed up payments to the contractors and provide information sought by the Commission. So as MDOT, the Commission, and OCA discussed whether the change could and should occur, we determined that no MDOT executives or seasoned commissioners could ever recall the Commission voting no regarding the B. So if commissioners never vote no, perhaps options could be developed and considered. So working with MDOT and the Commission, which included our current chair and vice chair and Commissioner Johnson on the other side of the table as MDOT's chief operating officer, a Commission resolution was developed that reclassified the Exhibit B as informational. And as a result, MDOT could pay the contractors in the normal course of business, and at some date in the future, when MDOT had performed a post-mortem of each of the reported projects, MDOT would present the pertinent facts to the Commission on the Exhibit B. So the end result was increased timeliness of payments and information to the Commission that was far more useful. So thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, I'm here.
I want to add something to that, Jack. I think that was my beginning of my second year on the Commission when we changed that. Mike, it might have been one of your first 2 meetings when we made that change on Exhibit B. Back then, we met 11 times a year, so contractors were only waiting 4 to 6, although in November, December, they could be waiting 8 weeks. Now that we're meeting 4 times a year, it's even more important that there's be some way around it. And I want to remind us all that nowhere in the Constitution say that the State Transportation Commission should be approving payments. So I find that changing this more to an informational report than anything else is very important. And with that, maybe Greg could chime in on how that it really affects on the MDOT side when he was there.
So I do remember those halcyon days of getting approval and angry contractors waiting for payments that essentially were going to get paid, but once again had to go through the process. So this was a tremendous value add to the process, and made MDOT more nimble, and solved a number of slow pay issues, and reduced those days of outstanding payments to a reasonable amount.
Greg, in the private sector, when you pay quicker, you tend to get better pricing. Would you say that because we were paying quicker because of this change, that contractors were not putting in a factor for waiting for payment into their bids?
Yeah, when contractors don't have to go out and take loans, that is a cost of doing business, and it does get reflected in bids. So changing that, we think, made a difference in pricing we were seeing going forward.
Helen, you probably know that better than anybody when you're giving bids out on contracts. You muted.
Yes, I do. I do have a question though on the checks and balances of this process. Jack, I just want to make sure that somebody working for MDOT's not a buddy working for the contractor. What checks and balances, or who's responsible then to make sure that we're not getting ripped off?
What would the, I guess, what would differentiate this from any other MDOT project in your mind?
Well, when we go over, is it the director then that verifies that, yep, that's right, after he talks to his people, or is it just the project manager that is giving the okay? How does it work?
I think Commissioner Johnson might have more of the details on this, but it's probably a graduated amount depending on the amount of work we're talking about. If it's a routine event, but it still requires a contract modification, because that's what this all leads to. They don't do work without contract modifications, I guess, in general, I will say, is at the end of the day, everybody has to agree to what's going on, so that way everybody should be paid for what's going on. So these contract modifications occur, and they do have a certain, I guess, chain of command involved in the contract modifications. And I'm sure the largest contract mods will get the attention not only of the project manager, but folks from the TSC related, perhaps the region related. And if it's monstrous enough, I'm sure they will inform the director as what's going on. But Commissioner Johnson, do you have any corrections of me?
No, that's a very good synopsis. The construction engineer is the first line of review for any contract modification. Then it goes to the TSC manager for his review and sign off. And if it is large enough, those large changes get reported up to the region engineer and eventually up to both the Lansing construction office and the office of the chief operations officer. So there is a series of checks and balances to verify, okay, why is this necessary? Is there another way to accomplish this work? So it's done with now electronic construction documentation. This can be done tremendously quickly. So this can, it's not delaying payments or shutting work down. So there's a tremendously robust system to look at it and get it approved in a timely manner.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions or comments on Jack? Okay, we will move on to presentations. Joanna?
Good morning, commissioners, and I'm going to say Happy New Year on January 21st, and a shout out to Commissioner Johnson from Kalamazoo. So appreciate you having me here today. As you may know, I am the chair and honored to be the chair of the State Michigan Transportation Asset Management Council. I've been before you previously, and it's a great honor to give you an update on the work of the Transportation Asset Management Council, both in 2020 and as we look forward to 2021. So just a couple key highlights and updates this morning. Just wanted to make mention that not uncommon across the state, 2020 was certainly a challenging, unique year, but it also brought opportunities Typically, annually, we do data collection on the road surface conditions across the state, beginning with the federal aid system and then off the federal aid system. Last year, in 2020, that was not able to be accomplished for a variety of reasons and challenges. But we look forward to this year. We do anticipate, and our goal is to get 100% of the surface condition ratings of our federal aid system. So we have an opportunity here in 2021, and we're continuing to focus forward, if you will, on that data collection effort with all of our partners across the state. Also, we continue to do our asset management training, whether it be for local elected officials, travel roads, collecting data on surface conditions, culverts, bridges, asset management plans. We have continued our training, of course, moved it to the web-based system to be able to still continue those efforts, and just really appreciate working with our support team really to make that happen in 2020. And as right now, we look forward to 2021. One little highlight I wanted to make mention, you know, all of this stuff is your glass is half full. We have opportunities. The Asset Management Council did have a conference. It was indeed held virtually. Hopefully in the future, you might be able to join us as well. But in this case, we had record numbers of folks participating, just being able to come into that virtual platform. So again, glass half full, it was a good opportunity. You know, lessons learned, of course, but the Asset Management Council was able to bring that forward and still continue with the conference. Just a couple items, just wanted to make mention, we are continuing, very important for us as a council to work on inventorying and setting a policy on condition assessment of our culverts across the state. We did a pilot in 2018, and we're trying to solidify what that data collection looks like. We have an estimate of culverts, not bridges, across the state of being over 200,000 culverts. So just a lot of work to be doing that, but yet a very important asset. And we're working with all of our partnering agencies and transportation agencies across the state to proceed in collecting that data as it's needed in our asset management plans. And we're also looking at traffic signals. That is also another key component that came out of the legislation as another important asset, and we're looking at how to define those in our asset management plans. We did adopt as a council a strategic work program from 2021 to 2023. We're looking at those continuously at our meetings, just making sure we're meeting those goals, working with our partners and our agencies. So just looking forward to all of those great efforts. Just wanted to also meet, and of the 41 that were due, we have received 31 of those that our administrative team with the TMC, Transportation Asset Management Council, are reviewing. So we got 31, we received, 31 of the 41 plans due, and we are working with the other agencies that did not submit in working to assist them to make sure that they are successful moving forward in that initiative. My last comment is I want to thank John Start, as in your action previously, for his many years of service through MTPA, the Michigan Transportation Planning Association, on the council, and appreciate your approval of Ryan Buck, who I believe is also joining us today, and just thanking you for that appointment and all of the work that John Start has done on behalf of the council. I also want to thank the Transportation Asset Management Council administrative team and support team, and our coordinator, Roger Belknap, who is also on, for all of their efforts in supporting the initiatives of the council. So on that note, I want to thank the State Transportation Commission for all of your continued support in asset management across the state, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Greg?
Mr. Chairman, just want to say hi to Joanna, and also the state of Michigan is so far ahead of other states in asset management, both collection of data and creating plans to look at different asset classes across the state. This is something that goes under the radar screen. But once again, I've seen efforts in other states, and they struggle with things that PAMC has conquered and moved forward. So I just wanted to say great job and keep doing great things.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I see that Commissioner Adamini has been able to join us. Steve, if you could state where you're calling in from to comply with the law.
I'm calling in from Marquette, Michigan.
Thank you. Lena, how about the final approval of the 5-year transportation plan? You're on mute.
And I'm on mute. Yep. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lina Chapman. I am supervisor within the statewide transportation planning division within the Bureau of Transportation Planning. Actually currently serving here as the 5-year program coordinator. We're actually going to be filling this position here soon, so this will be my last time presenting to you. But I am here to present to you the final draft of the 5-year transportation program. We're looking at years 2021 through 2025. And also with me today, I do have Jean Russman and Nikki Johnson and Alyssa Van Hoof. They're going to be presenting for their modes respectively. So we're going to kind of tag team on this. So I'm going to go ahead and pop up my presentation here for you and see if I can get this to work smoothly. There we go. Okay, so drop that down there so you can see. All right, so first off here, here's the overall 5-year program investment amount. We are looking at a $16.4 billion program from 21 to 25. Of that, we've got $13.3 billion going into the highway program, $2.5 billion into the public transportation program, and then $606 million into the aviation program. And if we kind of switch gears just a little bit, we're looking at just the highway program on this slide. For 21 through 25, we've got an average annual column there that you'll see. And then we've got the 5-year total column for the different program categories that we break up the 5-year transportation program into. So you can see for repair and rebuild roads and bridges combined, we are at about $9.7 billion of investment for those programs. Routine maintenance, we are at $2.2 billion. Then safety and system operations at $939 million. And then other state and federally funded programs, we're at an additional $445 million for that $13.3 billion total for the 5-year transportation program over the 5 years. If we just look at fiscal year 21, the investment for that year alone, we're looking at $3.6 billion in total. Of that, $2.1 billion is going into repair and rebuild roads, and then another $439 million in the bridge replacement and preservation programs. So that includes that $1.4 billion in Rebuilding Michigan bond financing that was mentioned by the director. And then in addition to that, we've got another $319 million in trunk line modernization projects. Routine maintenance, again, at $426 million, safety and system operations at $194 million, and then those other programs that we have, including transportation alternatives, workforce development programs, things like that, all detailed out in the 5-year transportation program document about what's all included in those categories, but at $88 million for that for fiscal year 21. And then just a brief compilation slide here, just wanted to give you a quick update about where we stand with the Rebuilding Michigan program. So for the fiscal year 20 projects that have been obligated, we're at a total of 7 for fiscal year 20. Of those, as was also mentioned by Director Ajegba, the I-496 job is the one that is completed. The other ones are still ongoing. And so of the total projects that we had originally listed, we had 49 projects. There were some combinations of jobs that were done. And then I think a couple of jobs were also kind of split out into 2. So the actual total number that we're looking at now as a result of some of those efficiencies that were done in order to work on the construction projects more efficiently, that we actually have a number of 46 total projects. So then you'll see the total number down there for fiscal year 21 through 24. There's another 39 projects that are coming, with 18 of those jobs being in fiscal year 21. And then that's really it for me for the highway program. I know we like to keep this brief, and I know we're running a little bit over, so I'm going to pass it along to Jean Russman. She's going to kick it off for the multimodal program, and then pass it on to Nikki and then Lisa, and then I'll wrap it up in the end. So Jean, if you're ready, I'll go ahead and forward your slides.
I'm ready. Thanks, Lena. So I am Jean Russman. I'm the administrator for the Office of Passenger Transportation. Been here over 30 years now, hard to believe. And so I just want to talk to you briefly about the public transportation program. I'm just going to talk to you about the passenger transportation portion of that program. And Lena, if you want to go to the next slide. So the bus and marine program is, whoops, went one too many.
Sorry.
Thank you. is a portion of the CTF programs, and we administer all the public transit programs, the public marine programs, and the intercity bus program, as well as a small part of regulatory for large charter buses. And as you can see in here, the lion's share of the funding we get goes towards local bus operating. And just as a side note, our programs are all pretty well prescripted by Act 51 and by the way the legislature allocates our money. So it is allocated by program. So we only can make decisions within those programs and in accordance with Act 51. So local bus operating provides between 30 and 36% of operating expenses for the local bus operators. We try to keep that consistent to maintain essential services throughout the state. And then transit capital is the next largest, and the same with that. That is what is used to replace buses that have met their useful life so that we keep safe equipment on the roads as we're carrying people, especially those who are very vulnerable. The other programs you see there are much smaller, yet very important. Specialized service provides services primarily for seniors and people with disabilities. The federal non-urban is just expenditure authority for federal funds that we pass through FTA onto the rural transit agencies. The inner city services in the state are really just to make up what the private industry has indicated by dropping out of providing service. Those services that the private industry can't support on their own. And so we provide assistance to make sure that we have connections across the state to the national network so people can get where they need to be, not just in Michigan, but also when they need to get on that national network and reach places outside of our state. Marine passenger is a very small program, but important to the people living on certain islands in our state. We serve Beaver Island and then in Ajegba, the St. Mary River system, and also a couple smaller ones across the state. We are actually have started receiving more federal funding for those transit agencies. So a lot of that money will be used to simply match federal funds so that we make sure we don't let federal funds go unused in our state. And finally, the smaller programs you see there are van pooling, service initiatives, transportation to work, municipal credit. Those, again, are partially prescribed by Act 51, but help complete that whole mobility picture. And service initiatives is small, but a very important part of our program. And that's where we can implement new technology, regional initiatives, things that will really move us forward and make sure that mobility is accessible and available for everyone across the state. So that is a very quick overview, and honestly, year to year over this program, it's mainly focused on simply maintaining those services and just trying to do the best we can for the citizens of the state regarding their mobility needs. So with that quick overview, I will pass it on to Nikki, and she will talk to you about the rail portion of the public transportation programs.
Thanks, Jean. MDOT's Rail and Port program will invest approximately $109 million in state and federal funds this year, with the majority dedicated to intercity passenger services as mandated by federal statute or existing contractual arrangements. Approximately $24 million will be invested in maintenance and capital improvements on the state-owned portion of Michigan's accelerated rail corridor, and $37.5 million will be invested for Amtrak's operation of the 3 intercity routes in the state. MDOT's passenger and freight rail program investments will otherwise preserve and enhance Michigan's freight rail systems, ensure railroad crossing safety, and promote economic development. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alyssa.
Hi, thank you. I'm Alyssa Van Hoof. I'm the Airport Development Section Manager in the Office of Aeronautics. And I'm going to talk about the aviation program for fiscal year 21. We plan to invest $121 million. Approximately 81.5 million will be invested in our 15 primary airports. These are the airports with over 10,000 passengers boarding each year. And then we'll have 39.6 million, which will be invested in the 76 non-primary Michigan airports that are also part of the NIPIAS, or the National Plan of Integrated Airport Systems. These projects are all part of the Federal Aviation Airport Administration Program, and the grants utilize discretionary, supplemental, and entitlement funding. And all of these grants are typically 90% federal, 5% state, 5% local. The Air Service Program is 100% state funded. In this coming year, we will provide $50,000 in grants to commercial service airports to help support statewide efforts to attract and retain air service. This is substantially less than we've had in previous years, and this is due to the decrease in the revenue from the aviation fuel tax. In addition to the normal airport improvement program, a portion of the $256 million we received in the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security, or CARES Act funding, may be used for capital improvement projects in fiscal year 21, 22, or 23. It's still unclear what impact this and the future stimulus of funding will have on the aviation program. And with that, I will pass it back to Lina to wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. So public comment, we are expecting to start public comment on Monday, holding that 30-day period from January 25th to February 25th. As is typical, all comments are going to be addressed by the appropriate MDOT project area, region, or local staff. So we monitor an inbox for that effort. As those comments come in, we provide a almost immediate response, and then we field those out and monitor their reply back to the commenter. And then a summary of the comments are typically included in the final document and will be included in the version that goes to the state legislature. So the version that you all have received so far obviously does not have that summary in there, but we do have some placeholder for that. So we plan to put that out there on Monday along with the online public map. So that is going along as scheduled. And then so far, next steps, I am here to request your approval of the fiscal year 21 to 25 5-year transportation program. And then upon that approval, we would post to the web, including that map that I just mentioned, hold public comment, and then wrap the document up with any final edits, adding that additional text in the middle there, and then submitting the document per the deadline of March 1st, 2021. And kind of all the while, we are rolling into the next year's 5-year transportation program. So we will see you again in July when we present the draft for the 2022 to 2026 5-year transportation program. And that is it. Do I have any questions?
Mr. Chair.
No questions. Go ahead.
So first off, Lina, how are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you, Greg.
You mentioned the spending on the non automobile related transportation, the alternative. So basically for walking and bicycling, how is the health of our spending in those areas? Are we seeing an increase, or is it flatlined or decreasing for spending on sidewalks, safe routes to school, those type of programs?
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, the spending has been consistent. We haven't had any increases in additional spending for those programs. That's not to say that there aren't additional needs out there, but we have not increased those template targets for those programs because we are basically waiting on a long-term revenue package in order to be able to make any adjustments to any of the program categories that we have out there right now. So there's definitely more needs, and we'd love to be able to increase budgets for folks, but that's just not possible at this time.
Understood. One of the things that I'm noticing, and it was a new trail that was just opened through Wixom. With COVID, we're seeing a lot of use, both bicycling as well as walking. So those are issues that are going to have a pent-up demand as we move forward in the year's future. So thank you for your presentation.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Go ahead, Mike.
Thanks, Lena, for the presentation. I don't think this is a question for you as much as it is maybe for Director Ajegba. And I know it's a little untimely because we wouldn't interject something into this 5-year plan, but come this summer, when we start to develop the next 5-year plan, would you foresee additions for the 2 critical bridges that were wiped out by the Midland County flood, that being the bridges over Sanford Lake on US 10, and then the M30 bridge over the Tobacco River that's going to be repaired by the end of February as a temporary solution, which I think only has a 5-year life. Would those 2 end up in the 5-year plan, in the next 5-year plan, do you think?
The US 10 one, probably not, but the M30 one, I would expect that to be. Again, the temporary bridge is just a 5 or 10 year temporary bridge to kind of hold things together till we decide on the long-term picture of with the dams and the community and the owners. What are we going to do there? Are we going to put the dams back, or we're going to try to reroute the water in different ways? So while we're waiting for that decision to be made by all the stakeholders, we felt the need to put that temporary bridge in place to at least give that community, a way to get in and out.
No, and that's unbelievable. It's great that was done. As you and I have talked, I'm hugely supportive of that. So the US 10 over Sanford Lake, that is considered more of a permanent repair that Fisher Contracting did?
I think that the repair we did there is probably going to hold up for quite a while.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions or comments? Well, Lina, thank you. You deserve a motion for this now, so I will entertain a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the 5-year plan as submitted.
Support.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining? The motion carries. And Lina, good luck, and since this is your last presentation to us, we will miss you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Moving on, before we get to public comments, we just finished our joint meeting with Aero, which is not a requirement for us to hold on our side. They have it on their bylaws, which can be changed. Does anybody want to continue or not continue having a yearly joint meeting with Aero, which basically is just 2 presentations?
You know, I could go either way on that, Mr. Chairman. This is my case. It is interesting to get Mike Trout's perspective, but maybe that could be handled just as a Mike Trout presentation annually instead of having to have a joint meeting. But I do like the fact that we do hear an update, and I would imagine the transportation commissioners, it was good for them to hear a lot of what the director had to say, because we need all the diplomats and ambassadors we can out there for for knowing what MDOT's doing with the bond funding and so on. So I'm kind of go either way.
Yeah, and in support of Commissioner Hayes, I think not growing us back into silos where we don't know what the aeronautics spending is looking like, and them not knowing what highway trends are looking like. I think once a year is not a imposition on this body, so I would be supportive of continuing.
We will continue. I just wanted to feel the temperature. Any public comments? Do we have any members of the public who wish to bring up a subject matter?
Mr. Chairman, I know that we have Mary Crowell that would like to provide public comment. So Mary is on, and I see she just came off mute. So Mary, go ahead.
Mary, weren't you going to try, just so people know that you were trying last time, but for somehow we couldn't get you into the comment section?
Yes, that happened.
Well, we're sorry that you couldn't. I know it was about, I think, the accidents and traffic safety. So we're sorry that for somehow you did not get recognized. This virtual concept is difficult.
Yes, I know. I'm on my local school board, and I know, it's difficult doing this. And I was out on project trying to get in to the meeting, and it was just difficult. But I just have a brief statement. I have 3 minutes, right? Is that correct?
Take your time.
Okay. So this is commissioners. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and Paul and Tony and Greg, who I know I've worked with at MDOT, all of you. I was on the I-94 project from Harris Road to 275, November 7th, 2019. Myself and other technicians and engineers, along with various contractors, have been working on that project days, nights, weekends since June. It has been extensive, intensive, and stressful for all of us involved. There's nothing positive about night work. It is difficult and dangerous. Setting up closures in the dark is dangerous and, in my opinion, unsafe. Traffic cannot see us. Traffic does not slow down when they see us along the roadway. They look like little rats scurrying around in the dark with their reflective clothing. It's terrifying sometimes to be out there and watching traffic setups. We have been fortunate to have a state police presence on site for some of the traffic setups, which has made a huge difference. The Taylor TSC worked diligently to procure a contract with the state police to provide police presence on the project. And this was written last November when this all happened, so it's in the past tense. What happened last Saturday morning will never leave my conscious or subconscious person. Those young men were just starting their lives, the age of many of our children. There are no words to express what any of us feel for their families and friends. It is numbing and overwhelming. It could have happened to any of us on the project that night, or any of the nights we have been working on site, because we work right alongside our contractors. Personally, this event has left me feeling extremely depressed and somewhat defeated. 30 years with MDOT as a transportation construction technician, and 17 years with an engineering consulting firm as a transportation construction technician on contracted MDOT projects. No one would be working this long unless they really enjoyed what they are doing and believed they were making a difference. I have always had a dedication to the people of the state of Michigan, but this incident will never leave my psyche. Night work is not conducive to a quality product, especially pavement repair jobs, concrete and asphalt. They are difficult to do in the dark, no matter the number of lights or safety measures. The crew is staggered throughout the project, sometimes over 2 miles with different operations. First, you have the engineer technician identifying, marking, and measuring repair locations. On concrete repairs, the saw crews are next, and they're all spread out. You may have 10 saw crews. And they're vulnerable and they're exposed. HMA joint repair has the mini mills and ground workers, the grading and cleanup crew, and at least 2 workers working on the ground with the loader. The drilling for the concrete dowels, the dowel bar crew, the bond crew. These crews are all spread out over 2 or 3 miles. You are vulnerable. You are out there. Whether you have lights or not, you are vulnerable and you are right out there on the pavement and you are on the ground. I know the topic of safety on construction projects and sites at this time is paramount to the industry, MITA, MDOT, local agencies, and consultants. It's critical that we protect our workers, all of our workers, and the motoring public. I fervently ask to rethink our work efforts, particularly involving certain types of night work. HMA paving operations and concrete deck pours are two operations that we can do at night, if nothing less to get the product to the site for delivery, the asphalt and the concrete at night in a timely manner. The joint repair and the pavement patch repair, joint stabilization work, joint sealing are operations that involve so many personnel on the ground, spread out over long distances with gaps between them. They're just extremely unsafe. I know that safety has always been of extreme importance to the industry and the stakeholders. After the horrible loss of life on projects this past 2020, conversation I know has ramped up even more because I've been involved with that, about safety on projects for everyone, the workers and the motoring public. Having worked on many night projects over 47 years, including HMA paving operation on US 23 and M14 around Ann Arbor, where we were lit up like a small city, and we still had someone drive right up on our paving operation to the back of our paver to the street at night. It's terrifying. I've been witness and on site to many close calls. So I just ask you, please look diligently at all these projects that are slated to be done at night and the aspect of safety for all of those involved on the project and for the motoring public. That's all I'm asking. Thank you so much for your time.
Mary, thank you. It is rare for us when a member of the public speaks to comment afterwards. However, I feel the need to comment for two reasons. One, because of your association with MDOT, and two, more importantly, because of the loss of life. In November, when this happened, the director and I were on the phone immediately. It is a discussion that is going to have to be had at the MDOT level and also with input from STC. I'm not sure if there's any litigation surrounding that, so I don't want to get into during a public meeting that could be where the conversation could be a matter of FOIA, get into a discussion as to the pros and cons in this format, but I believe that there is a format for that discussion. Anybody else have anything else to say?
Mr. Chair, just a comment. And wanted to say hi to Mary. I've known Mary for 25 years, and having worked out in the field for a number of years, and it's a dangerous place. And if we are to continue to attract young people to our industry, it's an issue that has to be dealt with. I know MDOT is looking at certain things as suggested by Director Ajegba. So there are ways and techniques that other states use that I think it would serve us well to look into some of those issues as a DOT to look into some of those issues that may assist making our work zone safer.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, this is Tony Cradafil, the Chief Operating Officer. May I make a comment?
Always.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you, Mary, for your comments. And you know, the things you describe are exactly the things that we are looking at in conjunction with industry. A couple of years ago, we started a joint task force, a work zone safety task force, as the result of several fatalities that happened in 2018. And we were using that venue to look at exactly these issues. Where is night work something that we need to maybe cease doing or doing to a much lesser degree? Where should we be doing positive protection? When I say positive protection, it means removing traffic from being adjacent to where the workers are. So that can happen with a road closure and a detour. It can happen with some type of a barrier, concrete barrier, or crossing traffic over to the other side of the roadway. We're going to take a much more serious look at how we incorporate that into our projects. There are impacts that come with that, cost impacts, potentially projects taking longer, but those are in our mind, especially after this last rash of traffic incidents last fall, they are impacts that quite frankly are not as significant as the loss of life. And so with the increased speeds and distracted driving and quite frankly impaired driving, we need to take action now in terms of changing our policy. So I just wanted to let you know that that is not something in the future. It is active work right now. We're working to put some things in place. We can certainly make a presentation probably at the next commission meeting to give you an update on where we are with that. But it will be an ongoing discussion after those initial changes as well.
Thank you, Tony. Any other comments on this very important matter? Mary, anything else for us?
I just want to say thank you to Tony and Paul and our leaders at MDOT. I know they're going to do the right thing to take care of their workers. And Greg, you folks have all been in the field. You know what we face every day. And I just appreciate your time. Thank you.
Mary, I want to, go ahead, Helen.
I'm sorry. Tony, can you give the commission an update on what you decide on this?
Yes, we certainly can. I will plan on the next meeting giving you a presentation as to where we're at, what changes we've made, and what changes we see in the future beyond that. We want to make sure, we do want to make sure that we're making smart decisions and not rash decisions, but at the same time, we have to make change here, right? The status quo is not acceptable.
Mary, I want to thank you for reaching out, and you don't necessarily have to reach out through this format. You don't have to wait for a public meeting when there's something concerning an MDOT employee that they want to bring to the State Transportation Commission's attention. And if you could let your colleagues know that, that would be appreciated.
Okay, I will do so. And I will be on project next year, and I will be looking, safety will be absolutely number one, no matter what we do, no matter what we do.
Wonderful. And I think that, you know, from our perspective, team, if you haven't been in the field, I know Greg has, I have not, that not to say, you know, maybe there is a time where MDOT will allow us to go out and look at some of the, we've been on site on projects before during the day, but perhaps one at a time we could be on site at a project at night and feel the terror that Mary is describing, if that's something that MDOT thinks is appropriate.
Well, and one more thing I have to say is the management staff at the Taylor TSC, who I worked for last summer, that included Adam and Sean and Jeff. They were all on the job. They came out at night. They were with us. Andy Bennett from MDOT has been out there, you know, quite a bit at night. We had other people come out. They know, they understand. So they understand. So thank you.
All right. Any other comments from the public? All right. We will adjourn this meeting, and I will make note that the next meeting will be on Thursday, April 22nd. I anticipate it to be remote as well. However, I'm not positive because I'm not sure when the law that allows us to meet remotely expires, but we will deal with that before the meeting. Stay safe, everyone.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
is there going to be commissioners' comments, or was that already handled when I was trying to get back on?
Go ahead. I don't think I asked about that maybe before. I can't remember, but go ahead, and if you have commissioner comments.
I think the 5-year plan that we just adopted is fantastic. And a large part of my enthusiasm about it is the additional funding that we have as a result of the action we took in January with the bond issue. Now, I know everybody in Lansing is waiting for the legislature eventually to come up with a funding scheme, but I believe that within the next couple of weeks, we're going to have a proposal from the Biden administration for a significant infrastructure package. And if I believe the talking heads and the prognosticators on TV, there is some indication that that is the program that is most likely to get bipartisan approval. And if that's the case, we may have another big influx of money coming in for projects that we have. Now, the purpose of those, of course, is to restart the economy. And I believe that every part of the economy, or every part of the state has had a serious effect on its economy. So as we plan how we would spend money if and when a infrastructure package, which includes transportation funding, comes about, I would think we would want to spread those projects throughout the state, because there's no part of the state that doesn't need a little economic stimulus. And that's something that we should keep in mind. And I would hope, if and when that becomes reality in Washington, I would hope that the commission is an important part of deciding how any of those funds that may be directed towards transportation, that our voice is heard, the voice of the commission. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner. Shakina, would you put down between public comments and adjournment for all future meetings a section that says commissioner comments?
Yes.
Thank you.